Okay, in this video I'm going to show you the BIOS for the Dell 435 MT. So I'm going to boot the computer up right now. So to get into the BIOS, you just continuously press F2. So press F2 to get in there. That's the BIOS. Get a better camera view. The system info's right there. This has a Intel i7-9200 with 6 gigabytes of RAM. Let's see, so right now I have 2 hard drives installed on here, and I want to check out the information for it. That's a 80 gigabyte Western Digital hard drive. And SATA 1, there isn't anything. SATA 2, there's another hard drive. That's a Western Digital 160. That's what I have in there. SATA 3 is empty. eSATA, there's nothing in there. So that's, go to Advanced BIOS features, CPU feature. So everything's pretty much enabled. That's by default. Okay, that's also by default, which is a good setting. Escape again, go to Advanced Chipset Features. Okay, this is default again. Now I want to change the boot priority, so I go here. I want to change the boot, the hard drive, the boot hard drive. So I want the second drive to be the 160. And the first boot drive to be the 80 gigabyte. And I'm going to try to install an operating system on this computer, distro of Linux. So this is what I want. First boot device will be a, I don't have a CD-ROM in here, so the first boot device will be the hard drive. Disable everything else is disabled except for just that one hard drive. I want to save it, exit. There isn't anything on that hard drive, so I'm going to have to press F12 to get into the boot menu. I passed the screen, so let me alternate control delete to get out of here. I'm going to press F12 repeatedly. Okay, F12 boot option. So I want to boot from my USB flash drive, which I installed, which I plugged into this computer. This is what I want to boot from, so I can install my distro of Linux. So this is an old computer, and it came with Windows Vista, and Windows Vista isn't upgradable to Windows 10, so the next best thing is just installing a distro of Linux and turning it into a server. Into a file server. I will be adding a better hard drive to this computer in the future, so now I booted into the operating system, so I'm just going to install Linux. Just double click on that. Select the language. US, okay. Install third party, okay, so Now I'll be bringing this computer back to life using Linux. So successfully booted into the operating system. So that's what I wanted to do. So after it installs, it'll just boot right into the operating system instead of booting into the USB device. So erase disk and install Linux. So I want that hard drive to be emptied. Just have Linux on it. Okay, this is the hard drive I want to select. I could select the 80 or the 160 because those are the hard drives I have in there. So I'm going to select the 80. Install now. Continue. Put my password. I usually install Linux, either Linux Ubuntu or Linux Mint on old computers. That's basically what I do. And either I use them as servers or I give them away to people who need computers. So the computer is fully functional with this operating system. You could use it to browse the internet. You could use it to shop on websites like Amazon, Shopify, eBay, and other websites, Best Buys, Costco, whatever. You could shop at any website. And you could use it to pretty much do everything, like you could use it to do email. You could use a word processor for it. I think there's a lot of free software for distros of Linux. You could install some type of word processor. You could look it up on the internet and you should be able to install it. And there's a lot of drivers for Linux as well. So there's printer drivers for it and scanner drivers and other things. So you should be able to install whatever thing you want to install, like a printer. You could use it to print stuff, stuff like that, just as an average computer, basically. You're not going to be able to play like the latest games or anything, but if you're someone who just needs a computer, you know, to get work done, this installing Linux is great. It's free. It's a free operating system. It doesn't cost anything, and I think this version of Linux is pretty stable. But people don't like Linux because they have to type in terminal commands. That's one of the reasons why people don't like Linux. But it's not intimidating or anything. You just learn it. You just learn how to type in commands to get stuff. Like update the operating system, install different types of software, etc. There's a lot of software you could get from getting Linux. And the good thing is most of the software is free. Another good thing about Linux is there's not that many viruses and malware which can infect it, because most of the malware rootkits and other malicious software like viruses, Trojans, other types of bad software is mostly written for Windows-based computers, and it's not really written for Linux-based computers at all. So it's a nice computer to have. And if you had an old computer laying around like I do, you could just use this as a server, some kind of media server or a file server in your house. And I will, like I said, add a better hard drive to this computer. Larger hard drive, maybe a 3 terabyte hard drive. And Linux is pretty secure. That's one thing I like about it. So I'm gonna let this install, and I want to get back to you. Okay, now everything's installed and I'm able to boot into my Linux operating system. Let's see how well this performs. So it's loading up right now. The hard drive is reading. Take a little bit of time at first because it's first time loading it in. Okay, good. Gonna go to terminal. Let's see, sudo. See, I can upgrade it. Updating all this. Sudo apt get upgrade. So right now I'm just updating my Linux Mint operating system, and you should do this when you first install any version of Linux or any distro of Linux. So I'm going to turn this into a usable computer now. This old Dell 435 MT with 6 gigabytes of RAM. If you want to turn this into a file server, you do have to install something called Sampa. I have a video on that. You could you can check on the top right corner, and you should be able to see that video on the screen, or I'll put it in the video descriptions as well. And you could also install different emulators on this computer. If you have some ROMs, then you could play some emulators. You don't have to download it from anywhere. You could just type it in and type it into the terminal and install different emulators. For example, the Genesis emulator, Sega Genesis or Mega Drive emulator, or the Atari Lynx emulator, or the Atari 2600 emulator, or a DOS box, or whatever. Unlike Windows, operating system or Microsoft Windows. Linux, for Linux, if you want to update it, it doesn't do it automatically. You have to type in commands to do it, like what I did. Like I typed in sudo apt dash get update, and I also typed in sudo apt get upgrade. That's how you upgrade or update Windows. I mean update Linux. It's the same for every distro of Linux, not just Mint. So I used to use Linux Red Hat back in the late 1990s, and that was my favorite operating system. In addition to that, Windows 98 at the time. I had both. So right now it's just updating. This is a pretty fast CPU, i7 920. That's the first generation Core i7 processor. I didn't buy this computer new. I just bought it used for $100 because I needed it for work. I needed a computer for work back in 2000 and I think it was 2016 or something. I just bought it used from the recycler, not the recycler, but Craigslist, for about $100. And it came with I think it came with Windows Vista, and that was pretty crappy. So and I did install I think I had a key for Windows 7. Windows 7 is now obsolete, so can't use that. It's no longer supported. This is going to take a while to update, so I'm going to let it update and I'll be back. Show you the specs for this system. I'm going to be testing it out and see how well it does, basically. I updated everything and just restarted my computer. Just log back in. Okay, good.